Hi everyone, welcome back. Today I'll discuss how you can make small batch syrup on your own homestead, assuming that you live in the appropriate climate. You should be able to tap maples pretty much anywhere that has several months below freezing during the winter, so I'd say this generally applies to the northern third of the US. The ideal tapping date will vary depending on your location, but sap starts running every spring when the daytime temperatures are consistently above freezing and your nighttime temperatures continue to drop below freezing. Here in New Hampshire, our maple season usually starts sometime in mid-February, generally around Valentine's Day, and the run usually continues into mid to late March. Giving my equipment a nice thorough cleaning before I use it. I give everything a nice little scrub, and I use a little bit of bleach to help sanitize things. As far as the tapping equipment goes, you'll need the spiles, which are the taps, some food-grade tubing, and 5-gallon buckets with lids. Now, in addition to the collection buckets that you're going to need at each tree, you're also going to need a fair amount to store some sap before you boil. Alright, so how big does a tree have to be before you can tap it? This one here is on my path to my chicken coop. And what you do is you look at the tree right about chest height. The tree has to be at least 10 inches across at this point to put in one tap. When the tree hits about 18 inches, you can do 2 taps. And when you hit about 24 inches across, you can do 3. Just set that down, make my life easier. One thing I do want to point out is I have to put a little vent hole in every single lid, and that's because the bucket will basically become pressurized and the fluid won't flow. Before I decide where to drill, I want to look for last year's tap holes, and here's one right here. So what I want to do is I want to be 3 to 4 inches on either side at a bare minimum, just so we don't keep wounding the tree in basically the same location. All right, now that the buckets are in place, I can go ahead and drill my taps, of course watching for the old one and trying to stay pretty distant from it. All right, now my drill bit is marked with a piece of tape. You want to drill about a 2-inch deep hole. And when you put the drill in, you want to go slightly uphill. So here's my old hole. Come a little bit to the side. Get started. And then up at a nice little angle. Now we'll tap in our spile. And when you do this, you don't want to hit them too hard because you don't want to split the grain above and below because it'll actually leak. About half of my taps go right here in the front yard, including this tree on the very left-hand side of the frame. There are 2 down here right along the edge of the driveway, and that little fella down there. So I'm going to knock a hole in the snowbank, so hopefully I can get through there a little bit easier. You can tap any variety of maple tree that you have on your property, although the aptly named sugar maple is your best candidate because it has the highest sugar content in its sap. The finished syrup will taste basically the same regardless of what kind of maple trees you tap, but you will need to boil it longer to create syrup if you use something other than sugar maple. Sap from a sugar maple usually takes about 40 gallons to make 1 gallon of syrup, while some other varieties will take 50 gallons or more. All right, it's 3 days later. I did my tree tapping on Saturday, and it's now Tuesday. So I'm going to take a hike out and start gathering buckets. And the first one I'm going to grab is this one way down here at the end. I don't necessarily expect a lot yet, but let's see what we have. Well, there's not a lot in there, and it is a darker sap, but that's all right. It'll still taste just fine. That just means there's higher mineral content here in this piece of the yard. All right, this particular tree has 2 taps. So I'll take these buckets and combine them into the one from the previous tree. All right, this tree's doing a little bit better. Looks like we have about 1 gallon of sap out of this one, maybe 1.5 gallons in that one. All right, here's what I grabbed today. This bucket is about half full. This one's full right to the top.
So 7.5 gallons or so. The run will definitely speed up as the days start to get a little bit warmer, and I'll end up having to collect probably every single day, and I'll get a whole lot much more quantity. All right, I just grabbed another 10 gallons of sap from out in the yard, and we now have 17.5 gallons or so to boil tomorrow. And one thing I want to mention is you cannot let this stuff sit around for too long, so it's important to boil it pretty quickly. After 4 or 5 days, it will actually start to ferment in the containers, and it'll be ruined at that point. So in next video, I'll be digging the snow off the evaporator in my little wood piles here, get this thing fired up, and start boiling.